Hello, Section 14. Good to see you on Thursday with weather coming. And sorry I'm a little slow on the draw getting the second video out to you this week. I am very busy, and it was a very busy day. Just a few observations to get us going that don't have that much to do with English. Just a quick recap, I did give my argument today regarding the football team. About 25 professors attended. And I think the most important thing that happened lasted an hour. The most important thing that happened really is what didn't happen. There was no fighting. There was respect and love and an attempt at understanding, and I spoke for a while. A couple of our coaches spoke for a while, most notably Greg Medic, who I've come to really admire in the years. And I think we'll just call it the beginning of a conversation regarding that. And I read my favorite poem about football, a sport I don't like very much, by James Wright, and I think I'll spare you that. Also, regarding the college news, this is probably something you have no interest in, and I get it, but next week is a big week for CLC. We have our Higher Learning Commission visit. It only happens every 10 years, and they're going to be there on Monday and Tuesday, and much preparation has gone into this. And I've just been fielding some upset, kind of anguished emails from our VP, Mark Johnson. It's his job to get people there. And he's nervous because faculty needs to sign up for these sessions. And I already signed up for 2 on Monday morning. I'm going to have to turn a couple classes loose. That's what we've been asked to do. And I just signed up for a couple on Tuesday. And I feel like I'm wasting your time. It really matters. And why would it be on your radar? And I hope you accept this observation too. I went out to feed my ducks just now. I'm a duck man. And I came in and learned that our former president, Donald Trump, has been indicted on a charge or two, and I think there's more coming in New York. I'm saying this as a historical observation, not political. I believe in poetry. I don't put much stock in politics. Poets have solved every problem. The answers to all your problems are in poetry. And not politics. And yet, what I'm uneasy about is what kind of country we're all going to wake up tomorrow morning on the 31st of March. I think I have an unsettled feeling, I think would be the way to describe that. I hope I haven't read this poem to you already. It's one of my favorites, and it's by a guy named Carlson Wee. It's just his little book of poetry called Dynamite. And you'll find out why in a minute. One of the dreams that never came true for me, and there aren't very many of those, I didn't have a daughter. We had at least one miscarriage for sure, probably 2, and that maybe was where my daughter is. She's waiting for me in heaven. And when I was a little kid, I didn't have a brother. I really wanted one. I had 2 sisters named Antigone and Medea, but I didn't have a brother. And when I look at Anders Carlson Wee and his brother Kai Carlson Wee, I'm realizing it might be a little bit more complicated than I might have thought when I was a kid. Sometimes poetry runs in families, like red hair, like freckles, like anything. And it's happened. It's happened more than once, especially with James Wright, who I read today, and his son, Franz Wright, who my mythologists hear about. I'd sure like to see some of you in my live mythology class this fall. Could you think about it? It's you'd be attending a noon Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. I love geeking out on classical mythology, just a sales pitch. So we're going to start out with a poem by Anders Carlson Wee. These guys are both rising stars in the American literature scene. And yeah, that's that. I will describe calisthenics. Forgive me, my wife's going to be home in a minute, and I want to close this door so she knows that I'm shooting a vid. I know this is super weird. The teacher leaves the camera frame. But my lavalier mic means I can just keep talking to you. I could go all the way out and get my mail. That might be pushing it. Probably could go a couple 100 yards away. I want to read a poem to you by Anders Carlson Wee. I want to describe some calisthenics that we did at Staples today. Just kind of some jumping jacks regarding reading. A little bit of a reading game, and I'll explain that to you. I'd like to at least go over one theme of American literature. I got to keep it in sync. There are 3 in number, as far as I'm concerned, and I only got to 1. And that might be what we get to today. And this, if you grew up in a neighborhood like I did, where you just invented like dumbass games, off the cuff and then just made up the rules, you know what I'm talking about. If you did that with friends that you grew up with in your neighborhood, wherever that was, if you did it with family, that was the story of my neighborhood. We were always inventing these stupid and fantastic games at the same time. And every one of those games was to the death. Anders Carlson Wee, dynamite. My brother hits me hard with a stick, so I whip a choke chain across his face. We're playing a game called Dynamite, where everything you throw is a stick of dynamite, unless it's pine. Pine sticks are rifles and pine cones are grenades, but everything else is dynamite. I run down the driveway and back behind the garage where we keep the leopard frogs in buckets of water with logs and rock islands. When he comes around the corner, the blood is pouring out of his nose and down his neck, and he has a hammer in his hand. I pick up his favorite frog and say, "If you come any closer, I'll squeeze." He tells me I won't. He starts coming closer. I say, "A hammer isn't dynamite." He reminds me that everything is dynamite. Anders and I are I'm friends with these guys, and I wrote Anders, and I'm like, because I read this to my students, and they're like, "Wow, what happened next? Was that real? Did that come out of the real, or is it completely apocryphal?" And I wrote him an email, and I said, "Hey, dude, what happened next?" And he told me, "Jeff, I'll tell you that if you host me for Verse Like Water." So we'll have to bring that poet. Minnesota boy, and they also spent some time in North Dakota. Okay, today, let me get over here a little bit so my words have some room. I had to do Zoom today up in Staples because that meeting went too long, and it went all the way up to the hour mark, which meant that I was consigned to teach them with the camera. And so I have a delightful colleague that's about my age in Staples who kind of serves as, there's a teacher in the room. There's got to be a teacher in the room when I'm Zooming. And before, when I shouted the Zoom address, I said, "Okay, would you please go up to the board and put the following bit of dialogue on the board?" Dead simple. And it's this. I'll put it right before you. Person A says, this is a reading game. Person A says, "There's a new movie in town Friday." Person B says, "Oh, that's nice." Now, it was really kind of tough to play the game the way I wanted because this is a live class thing, and the Wi-Fi can be janky. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys. Those Chromebooks, I'm hiccuping because I just ate some shrimp. Those Chromebooks are junk, but they're all you got. And basically what I wanted to do, and it kind of worked. Some kids' microphones worked and some didn't. So AJ was the first. I said, "Okay, AJ, what's going on?" And pretty quickly he knew what I was up to. He said, "Okay, we're in a school, and a young man wants to ask a girl out, but she's not having it. She rejects him." Like, whoa, denied. And another interesting kid in there, Gabe Ritter, said that he saw a living room situation with a grandfather reading and a little kid saying to him, "Hey, Grandpa, there's a new movie in town Friday." And Grandpa wasn't having it either. So there's an origin story here. That activity, just trying to create a scenario for dialogue that basically is nothing. I mean, there's nothing. It's just thin air after that, right? I saw this on a blackboard of Dr. Richard Beach at the U of M in Peak Hall, about 1984. I was, starting to think about teaching. I was getting some grad credits under my belt, and I took an adolescent literature course from him, even though I don't put much stock in adolescent literature. If you like YA stuff, that's great. I'm not shaking my fist at it, really. I just got, I'm a snob. That's what I am. I'm a literary snob. So I loved Richard Beach. He even put some stuff that I wrote in a book long ago. And he's the one that taught me that academic journals are everything, that they can be the corner of an English class. I owe him great debts, and we are still friends, even though he's a very old man now that taught well into his 70s. So Beach, back when he was young and I was young and we were all young, he puts this up on the board, and he was like, "Okay." He was from the South. "What about it? What about it?" Whoa, I was all in instantly. And I said, okay, look, we're in a high school. We're in a high school situation, and there's a young man, a couple lockers down, there's a girl that he really loves. He's fallen for her. He is smitten, and he cannot tear his gaze from her. And he wants to ask her out, but he's nervous. So he's speaker A. He's the one that says there's a new movie in town. Now, unlike AJ in Staples, who thought that she wasn't interested at all, and back in 1984, I thought this is the beginning of a story. And I said, she's interested. I told the class this, graduate level class in English, so long ago. And she's interested, but she wants him to be a little bit more assertive. Like, hey, are you going to take me out for ice cream in a movie or not? And I don't know what the next line is. But there was, for some reason, every once in a while, somebody just hates me. Most people like me. You got to shoot for percentages. But there was a woman in there who was completely irritated by me. And you got to know this, right? In undergrad, everybody's nice, but then when you go to grad school, like some of you are, whoa, the knives come out. The knives come out. You'll see. And when I said that, when I described that scenario, she folded her arms that told me she was angry. We were in a circle. And she said, Jeff, for all you know, it could be two transvestites. And the room laughed a little bit. And I kind of had to zing her back, and I said, okay, well, let's briefly think about probabilities. What are my chances of being correct? And what are yours? And then the room laughed even harder, and then it was like extra Jeff Johnson hated. She just kept hating on me. How's that song go? The hate is gonna hate, 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 hate. I like Taylor Swift. There's a fun fact about me. I think she's the real deal. Why am I talking about Taylor Swift? And why am I not telling you what I'm up to? In the doing of that, in enacting that bit of that exercise, there's a really important idea behind this, and it's inferencing. We inference. We inference when we read, but we also make inferences that kind of take us into what I think of as the white space of a poem or a play, a novel, a short story. And Hemingway knows how to use white space. I guess that's what my point is. And I told my Staples people the same thing that I'll tell you. There's a novel by Hemingway that I've already mentioned called A Farewell to Arms. And I've mentioned that he just kind of kidnapped himself into that novel. And there's a scene in that novel, about a third of the way through, where this character, Frederick, is starting to feel better after his war wound. And Catherine Barkley, the nurse who loves him back, is in there, in the room with him. And it's kind of like the reader is out in the hallway, peeking in there. And he's, I don't know how to put this any other way, but he's feeling a little frisky, even though they're in a hospital. And she's like, oh no, you can't, you're not strong enough, you're too weak. And his attitude is like, you know what, I'm feeling better. I'm paraphrasing roughly. And they go back and forth, and after a while she says, okay, but only for a minute. And then he says, all right, good, close the door. And Catherine gets up and closes the door, and the door is almost closed to the reader. And then Hemingway takes his finger and he hits the return bar a couple, 3 times and creates this wonderful, strange white space right in the middle of the novel. And that white space is something we can go into and imagine what is going on in there. And then the novel resumes. He starts typing again. And Frederick, the third person narrator says, then it was over, and he felt finer than he had ever felt. And this is, I know maybe it would have been different if he had written it in 2023, where pretty much everything is just glaringly out there. But in the olden days, writers and artists gave our imagination some elbow room to work. And one more quick story about this. Years ago, I was teaching an AP English class. It was pretty smart. And I can't remember what country this young man was from. Mufaro. I really love this guy. I wonder whatever happened to him. He came in, I settled him down, and started up with a poem, and then we wanted to talk about Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms. And I said, so, what'd you think of that crazy sex scene in A Farewell to Arms last night? Mufaro was looking around the room like he had missed it. He was just like, what? What? Did I miss sex? No, he just didn't inference his way into that white space. One more thing to tell you today. And when we get together again with my third video for the week, we'll cover the themes of American literature and take a look probably at Hemingway's Nobel address. So another thing I did in Staples today, to make a point was I had them all take, okay, just dropped a penny. I had them all take like a little piece of paper, tear one off. It's hard to do things through Zoom. It's like when we were locked up. But I basically said to the class, okay, here's the deal. Let's imagine that I write a grant that gets a whole bunch of money. And imagine further that I have enough money to send everybody in this room on a 1-week vacation. The only condition is it has to be somewhere in America. It can be in the 48 contiguous states, or it can be Alaska or Hawaii, but no European vacations. This is an America thing. Right now, write down where you'd go. And then I gave all those to AJ. I guess I'm talking about him a lot. And I had the other Gabe, the rival Gabe, I sent him to the board, and I had him create a compass, like a north, south, east, and west. And I did it on paper here so I could see it unfold. And I said, okay, now AJ, you call out each state. And Gabe, I want you to put a little chip mark wherever it lands. 2 kids wanted to go to the south. One of the 17 kids in that room got confused and wanted to go the wrong direction, east, to Maine. The other 14, I've seen this year after year after year, the other 14 all chose states that are west of the Mississippi. Why is that? Because the west is a huge deal. You think those directions, north, south, east, and west, are equivalent? You're wrong. The biggest direction of them all is west. And the west is one of the great themes of American literature. It is hardwired into the DNA of our consciousness. The west is the biggest direction of them all, and it's been happening for centuries. I'm Western oriented. I'm all about Western literature, Western Europe, Western art. It's just the way my head is wired. And if you want to reorient yourself to the East, that's fine. I'll be clapping for you too. But I'm all about the West. And I love thinking in this way. And I've been thinking in this way for many years, for decades. For me, Western civilization begins in a garden. It begins with the first psalm and the first poet of Europe. And the first poet is the Psalms, and the first poet was King David, dancing in front of the tabernacle, all oiled up, dreaming all those psalms into being. And then civilization, as the centuries go by, just gloriously moves across Europe and all the way to the United States. And I'm not, talking about manifest destiny. I'm just talking about a direction and a pull. And the direction is social. It is artistic. It is psychologic. And it is irrevocable. When we dreamed this great country into being, the sad part for me, and for some of the wagon train guys, we ran out of West, right? And some of those guys, I've read this long ago, but I think it's true. Some of those wagon train guys, 1 or 2 of them, when they hit the Pacific Ocean and there was no more frontier to go to, that was it. Some of them took their lives with their 6-shooters right on the spot. And, it took a hold of me too. I don't recommend this, but when I was 23 years old in 1983, when my wife couldn't figure out whether or not she wanted to marry me or John Moriarty, she needed space, and she said, I need space. I said, okay, I'll give you space. I'm going to go on a trip, and I'm coming back in September, and I want you to tell me, I want an answer. Are you going to enter into a story with me or not? You got 4 months. And in May of 1983, I hitchhiked all the way to Alaska. Again, I don't recommend that. It took 17 days, and hitchhiking is super stupid and super dangerous. But that's how I was when I was a kid. Now I'm totally into being just as safe and as happy as I possibly can here on my 20 acres, or in my second favorite place in the world, my classroom, E339. So the West is a big deal, and you're going to see that in the stories that we have coming up. You're going to see it in Hemingway, you're going to see it in William Faulkner, and you're going to see it in F. Scott Fitzgerald. Although the real problem with that story is that everyone's gone in the wrong direction. They've gone east. And, well, I don't want to wreck that novel, do I? Not yet. Hate to be a spoiler alert. Stay safe. We got some weather coming. I'm teaching Zoom tomorrow because my county is going to get pounded with freezing rain. It's already happening right now. I had to tell my wife to come home early. She wanted to go to the Chrism Mass at the big St. Cloud Cathedral. And that's a big deal to her. But I said, you go, girl. You come home. And she'll be here in a minute. So let's get this edited and up for you. Again, stay safe tomorrow. And let's hope America just has a regular day, right? I don't think that's what's next. I think we got trouble tomorrow, you guys. And I love being wrong about stuff like that. Bless you.